Good morning, everybody. This is Matthew Chamberlain, Deputy Director for myFutureNC, and we've got a special webinar today as part of our series, continuing with the series, but today is more of a group effort. We will be hearing from Anita Brown-Graham and Emily Wilson-Ganji from ncIMPACT at the UNC School of Government, and also from Nation Han from EdNC. We've got slightly more ambitious and soaring production values today. There's going to be a combination of video to go along with the slideshow. So this webinar today is going to highlight some of the local innovations that they uncovered as the Commission works to set our goals and strategies for the educational attainment goal that we've been talking about for the past year almost. So the briefs are all on the, will all be on the website at myfuturenc.org/resources. Several of them are already posted. The rest will be coming soon, but we've got a very rich program today, so I'm going to turn it right over to Anita, Emily, and Nation.
Wonderful. Good morning, everyone. This is Anita Brown-Graham from ncIMPACT at the School of Government here at UNC Chapel Hill. Really excited to be with you this morning and to share what we learned as we went across North Carolina with EdNC, focusing on some truly exciting bright spots in increasing educational attainment. Just by way of background, the myFuture Commission began to hear about some of these exciting local innovations during its listening tours, which were really carefully curated by the great Friday Institute for Local Educational Innovation. The Friday Institute developed a set of themes that they heard that both reflected challenges and opportunities around local efforts to build a talent pipeline, and we went out in search of profiles that met those themes. We actually gathered about 40 nominations from people on the myFutureNC Commission, from some of their subject matter experts, from other folks who are experts in education, and some of the nominations came from EdNC and from ncIMPACT. In trying to pick among the 40, all of which were worthy of a profile, we looked to reflect a little bit of geographic diversity and also some economic diversity, recognizing that much of this conversation is about how our educational institutions transform themselves to be more demand-driven, given the changes in our economy. We wanted to make sure that we were hitting some of the ways that the economy is manifesting itself in different places in North Carolina. We went out and interviewed a bunch of people associated with each of these profiles. The list of interviewees came from program administrators, while ncIMPACT was responsible for them writing up the profile. EdNC did the really great and creative work of trying to capture the story by video. So that's how we got to where we are, these 10 promising practices that we'll be sharing with you today. I want to see if I can start off by focusing on the bright spots we found in terms of increasing opportunity. One of the themes that has been resonant throughout the entire myFutureNC Commission work is that we have to find a way to work hard to develop access to opportunity for students who are not realizing their full potential. As the Commission has said, there are structural conditions that perpetuate achievement gaps among students. These gaps threaten economic competitiveness for our state and certainly restrict our capacity to innovate. So we all recognize that we have to prioritize equity and eliminate structural barriers. We'll start now with one of the videos from a profile.
Which group do you think was lagging behind in every area?
African American males.
Yes, African American males. And I remember, just like it was yesterday, a major in the police department stood up and said, this is a travesty. We as a community have to do something about this. We came up with this program called the Gentleman's Agreement, where we would focus on 25 African American males at each of our comprehensive high schools. We have 3 of those. And so 75 students providing the kitchen sink of support.
That was a clip from our Wilson 2020 Youth Master Plan. I'll talk a little bit more about that program in a second, but I want to start with our program, Project Search, which is in Asheville. It's always a delight to go to Asheville in the early fall. It was a particular delight to be with the team at Project Search, which is a program to help secure competitive employment for individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities, giving opportunities for post-secondary education and work-based learning. This program, which actually exists in 12 cities in North Carolina, but really exemplifies the best of the best in Asheville, helps students in special education find employment through post-secondary education. The program works specifically with Mission Hospital, and over a third of the participants have secured permanent employment at Mission Health. Almost all of them have secured permanent employment elsewhere, which is fantastic, as Asheville metro region has one of the lowest unemployment rates in the state. This is a great opportunity for the expansion of their talent pool. I'll move next to Wilson 2020, which you saw a clip of just now. This master plan has a dizzying array of activities for the Wilson community. It is truly impressive and truly comprehensive. There was so much going on that we had to pick 2 things that we would focus on in our profile. We picked the fact that the community is creating school-based health centers and that the community had developed what we think is a really impressive and worthwhile program, a gentleman's agreement. For purposes of the webinar, I'm just going to focus on a gentleman's agreement, which is a program that specifically deals with helping African American males in high schools develop the trajectory they need to go on to post-secondary. What's really interesting about this program is Wilson doesn't pick the best and the brightest for a gentleman's agreement. Instead, they pick students who in the 9th grade appear to have the potential, but don't seem to be on the college track. And in working with mentors across the community, business leaders in the community, the school system, they have been able to send all of the students who have graduated from this program through post-secondary experiences. Big shout out here to Barton College, which is a partner in the Gentleman's Agreement and has committed to delivering a scholarship every year, a full scholarship to a graduate from this program. In looking at the outputs of the program, they've been able to demonstrate that these students have higher academic achievement, obviously have less absenteeism, fewer tardies, but maybe what's more important is because they are picking students who have leadership potential, the spillover effect is these students start to think that high school is cool, then their friends start to think that high school is cool. With that, I'll turn it over to my colleague to share some other profiles.
Hi, it's Nation Han from EdNC. We're going to look at the support theme now. I mean, one of the things that came out over and over again as we traveled the state was that students and families really needed support to help make the best decisions about career paths. And part of that is that a lot of families would tell us that they hadn't necessarily thought of community college as an option, for example. Other teachers and educators told us that their students needed the ability to actualize their aspirations and the connection to employers. And so we want to take a look at these supports. We've highlighted 2 programs. And so we'll first look at Project Secure in Lake County. Project Secure offers training for IT jobs. It was an outgrowth of the, let's see, what was it? The Rehire or the Tech Hire initiative. And It launched just a couple of years ago. And so what's interesting about Project Secure is that it really does bring together Wake Tech, the Workforce Development Board, the City of Raleigh, and then local employers such as SAS and IBM to create what I think of and what I think we classified as demand-driven curriculum. Employers being engaged in structuring programs is something that we saw around the state where you really saw innovation happening, where you really saw programs connected to local hiring and local industry needs. Project Secure is specifically focused, as I said, on the IT space, and to secure funding, the person who wants to enter the program must be between the ages of 17 and 29, be out of secondary school, be unemployed or underemployed, and have no education or work experience in cybersecurity. One of the quotes that I found particularly compelling in the program profile that Anita and Emily put together was, "Believe, I cannot find a job," and Project Secure changed that. I think that one of the things that we also heard a lot about in these listening sessions was the need for entry and exit ramps to upskilling opportunities. And so that's something you'll see in a number of these profiles. So Project Secure is an excellent example of that in Wake County. We'll move on to Project Gold Rush in Mecklenburg. It is a project at UNC Charlotte, which is really aiming to mitigating barriers to timely graduation. Time after time, we hear about students who are on the razor's edge. They're a car repair away from dropping out, or a car repair that they can afford away from graduating. UNC Charlotte took a look at the data, found that 74% of their students who were stopping out due to financial concerns. And so this program, Project Gold Rush, provides microgrants of up to $1,500 for students who are within 2 semesters of graduating. They have a few conditions to receive the grants, including a degree completion plan, the ability for the resume to be reviewed and approved, entering a career fair workshop, et cetera, et cetera. The project is showing a lot of initial promise, and I think it sort of aligns with some efforts in the community college system around finish line grants and other efforts at other institutions. This is really speaking to, I think, a large issue in North Carolina around degree attainment that Anita looked at along with her colleagues, which is really the 905,000 residents who have some college education but no degree or high quality certificate. For a lot of these students who graduate with who don't graduate, and who then have student debt and then who don't have a degree or credential to show for it, they really are at risk in the economy as we continue to change. And so Project Gold Rush is an excellent example of that. And so I think we're going to hand it off to Emily now for alignment.
Good morning. So the third theme identified by the Commission is the need for better system alignment. What we heard around the state was that there's often misalignment between grades and schools and our different systems of education and workforce, and that these misalignments can derail many students from their studies and prohibit smooth transitions. So the recommendations of the Commission involve better aligning but pre-K to 12 and post-secondary curricula and support, and scaffolding them so that students progress with ease. The Commission also wants to mitigate a loss of credits when transferring within post-secondary systems, and for the education systems to really have a common definition of what it means to be college and career ready. And another recommendation in this section that is really important is that education and workforce systems need to collaborate more with the business community to ensure that skills and competencies match what employers need. This next clip we're going to show is a video of Casey Steinbacher, who's the executive director of Made in Durham, and she's going to explain a bit about their system alignment efforts.
Made in Durham decided that their role was going to be in systems change and system alignment, not programmatically. So our job is not to do the programs. Our job is to work with all of those myriad of organizations that are already doing incredible work, but to work with them to be able to align their work with everyone else's work so that we are producing greater outcomes. And that's been really hard for people to grasp the concept. It's been hard for the partner organizations to understand early on. It was hard for funders to understand where are your programmatic results. It was hard to build trust with all those organizations that are already doing the hard work as the new organization telling them how to do it better.
So I want to share with you a bit about Made in Durham, which is not a program, as they will quickly tell you when you question them. It's a community partnership with education, business, government, and nonprofit organizations. And their overarching goal is that all Durham youth complete high school and a post-secondary credential and begin a career with family-sustaining wages by age 25. The challenge that Made in Durham is addressing is that communities need to increase the availability of innovative career-focused opportunities to meet workforce needs, and they're working a great deal on alignment and engaging with the business community and addressing the racial inequities that exist in Durham in educational attainment. The really promising areas of this strategy are, one, the alignment with the business community. Made in Durham created a business engagement team that convenes the different education systems in Durham, and they all communicate with the business community together in a coordinated way instead of individually. An example of the work that came from this is that Duke Energy recently awarded a grant to Durham Tech to create an electric line technician program, and Durham Public Schools are working in coordination with that program to build awareness of this field in the high schools in Durham Public Schools. Another area of promise is the youth engagement of Made in Durham. They have a Made in Durham youth network with students selected from diverse communities and high schools in Durham County. And these students get together twice a month and do different leadership development and skill building activities. And they work on action plans in their high schools. Made in Durham also includes representatives from this youth network on their board of directors and on their advisory team. So it's a great example of youth empowerment and really engaging youth in identifying solutions. They're addressing the racial inequities in Durham through their Racial Equity Task Force, which has public and private sector representatives. And the youth network action plans in their high schools are focused on addressing racial inequities. Some examples are working to try to mitigate the disproportionate representation of students of color in disciplinary actions, and working to increase the number of students of color who enroll and complete advanced placement courses. Finally, Durham is doing a lot around work-based learning. They've created a framework for grades 9 through 12 that connects with their post-secondary institutions, and they've got a Durham Youth Work internship that is offered every summer. This year, 180 students participated in the internship, which involves a 5-week internship and skill building. Those 180 students were selected from 700 who expressed interest and 400 who completed all the requirements for the internship. So Durham has a goal to offer 1,000 internships each year by 2021. Next is, we want to talk about STEM East, which is based in Greenville, North Carolina, but it serves 12 counties in the East. This program uses problem and inquiry-based learning models for STEM learning, and the resources are offered in schools, in after-school programs, in museums and science centers, and online so that students can use the resources at home as well. The challenge that they're addressing is a common definition of college and career ready, and also working on alignment between systems. They convene an Eastern North Carolina Employers and Superintendents Council that has representatives from the counties involved. This effort is provided backbone support by the North Carolina East Alliance, which is the regional economic development organization in the region. They host a quarterly gathering of the different museums and centers so that they can align their curricula with schools in the region. And they support STEM labs in 90% of the middle schools in their region. They also provide a great deal of resources for STEM teachers, and they offer a Teachers at Work program in the summer so that teachers are placed with employers in the area for an externship, and then are able to bring what they learn back into their classrooms. The promise here is really increased student engagement and skills and knowledge. Some examples of their successful outcomes are that in one system, students who qualify for individual education plans and participate in English as a second language courses experience some of the greatest gains in learning outcomes. And in another system, there's data to indicate that girls who participated improved their learning outcomes in science a great deal. Next, we'll talk about preparation.
Well, as you have probably deduced, many of these programs could fall into multiple themes. Particularly, preparation is what every program thinks it's doing. The commission determined that there were really two important, interrelated, but distinct thrusts around this theme. The first was the fact that employers are very focused on getting the workers they need with the skills that they need to remain competitive. And today in North Carolina, as evidenced by the conversation of business leaders in the commission, but also supported by the North Carolina Department of Commerce's 2018 employer survey, employers still are struggling to find the talent they need. So the first thrust is about preparing students to meet the needs of employers. But the second related thrust is recognizing that for students to be prepared, they actually have to have rigorous academic and career preparation in high quality learning environments with well-prepared teachers and school leaders. And we'll check out a clip from one of our videos related to this theme.
In some cases nowadays, especially in today's world, we need students to step up and combine different training and certificate programs together. And some of the terms that we hear now is stackable credentials. So it's no longer coming to a training center to learn how to operate or build one widget. You need multiple skills to prepare yourself for a dynamic workplace today. And so I think STEP and the community colleges and the K-12 systems and nonprofits and the businesses and government can all help us make sure that we're preparing students the right way as opposed to just a singular focus. It's a comprehensive focus.
The first program we'd like to highlight for you is Profound Gentlemen in Mecklenburg County. This program focuses on the teacher pipeline and specifically works to retain male educators of color in the profession. Interestingly, less than 2% of teachers today are African American males. This may or may not cause concern for you until I tell you that studies indicate that having at least one African American teacher, particularly in grades 3 through 5, reduces the probability of low-income African American males dropping out before completing high school. So now when we think about what it takes for us to increase educational attainment, in particular for African American males, we recognize that having teachers of color, particularly African American male teachers, is going to have to be part of the solution. Profound Gentlemen was actually founded by two middle school African American male teachers in Mecklenburg County who decided that there was a problem and they wanted to do something about it. They connected with a researcher at UNC Charlotte who explained to them that all of the studies reflected that the high attrition rate of males of color from the profession had to do with an inability to navigate the profession, not feeling very well supported in the profession, not being given the skills for leadership in the profession. And so they went about creating this program that would be responsive to each of those challenges. The program today has over 400 teachers as part of this year's effort alone. That's pretty consistent with the numbers it has had over the last 3 years. One thing to note is the program at one point operated in 5 major cities, only one of which was in North Carolina, Charlotte. They were also in Atlanta and Chicago and elsewhere. They've now decided that what they want to do is really build a best case model here in North Carolina before expanding that to other states. And by building the best case model in North Carolina, they mean building it all across North Carolina. They've begun an effort in the eastern part of the state, which has roots in Edgemont County, Edgecombe County, and Raleigh. They are beginning to think about what it means to be west of Charlotte in the state. What can communities that have profound gentlemen expect? Well, let's just look a little bit at some of the outcomes from the early years. In the first year, 100% of profound gentlemen returned to the education sector. 80% of them returned and took on some leadership responsibility within the sector. 86% of them said they were better teachers in their classrooms as a result of the kind of programming and mentorship that they received through Profound Gentlemen. So this is a program to watch. It's early in its years, but it's already having quite an impact in the state. And given the desire to scale across the state, many of you will be hearing about this program in your own communities. The second program that really focuses on preparation of students, and that's the Career Accelerator Program, which is run through the Alamance Chamber of Commerce. This is a 4-year program that offers technical career opportunities to highly motivated high school students and provides them with manufacturing jobs after graduation from the community college. The program was designed after the successful Apprenticeship 2000 program in Charlotte and the Triangle Area Manufacturing Program in the Triangle. What's different about this program is the employers who support it readily admit that their challenge is decidedly different from the challenge of manufacturers in larger urban areas. For them, developing their own talent pipeline isn't something they do on top of recruitment. It's something they often find they have to do instead of recruitment. As 2 company managers said to me, it's harder for us to recruit out-of-state talent to Alamance County, and when we do recruit that talent, it's harder for us to retain it. So for our companies to continue to grow and thrive, we have to figure out how to build from within. They've been doing a pretty good job of that with great support from the Alamance Community College. Students end up graduating from Alamance Community College with an associate's degree. They have valuable job experience at relatively no cost to their families. Once they get their AA degree in mechatronics, which I had to learn what that was, they then may receive tuition reimbursement for further post-secondary education. Almost every employer I interviewed said, we get a student through this program and they decide they want to get a bachelor's degree in engineering, we're paying for it all the way. So for these students, there's this opportunity not just to emerge with a college degree debt-free, but by the time they get the college degree, their on-the-job experience is such that they can write their ticket anywhere. This is the kind of programming that's happening elsewhere in the state, but I have to say that the level of cooperation between the private sector, the K-12 system, and the community college in Alamance is probably unparalleled. Nation.
And finally, we'll look at the theme of coordination and accountability. Anita and I were discussing the other day that many of these programs, when you get down to like the secret sauce, it really is people are working together in a variety of arenas, from education to business to community leaders to government. In fact, when we ask them if they're collaborating, they generally would laugh and say, of course we're collaborating. One of the things that the myFutureNC Commission has underscored is that we have to ensure that parental engagement, employer engagement, and all aligned together, and that there's a sustainable effort between all of these stakeholders moving forward if we're going to hit our attainment goals. We're going to show a quick clip, and then I'll move into the 2 programs.
Education has turned itself inside out. If we held on to the historical models of how education is delivered historically in the United States, from public K through 12 to higher education, we run the risk of becoming obsolete in these rural areas because our populations would move out. So we're having to do things differently. We're having to trust each other and take risk on programming to assure that we are adding the credential values that business and industry are looking for. And that means that business and industry have to make a commitment to those pathways.
So first we're going to look at STEP in Edgecombe and Nash counties. The program, which STEP is short for Strategic Twin Counties Education Partnership, is a cradle-to-career talent pipeline effort. Edgecombe and Nash have found themselves in a position that is pretty unique in that they have 1,700 at least new jobs coming over the next 24 months. And while this is unique in that there's so many coming, they're really tackling a program that we hear, a problem that we hear about over and over again in rural areas where they have usually a significant amount of good, high-paying jobs for the region that simply are going unfilled. And so STEP understood that. They know what's coming for their area. And one of the things they wanted to do was fight against the perception there are no good jobs here. So they have launched an effort called, I think it's #WorkHere, which is a media campaign designed to sort of counter this perception, or misperception rather. The aspects of this campaign include career exploration and preparation opportunities in advanced manufacturing, healthcare, and transportation. They connect students to role models. They have informal lunches. They have career showcases. It also connects with the Career in College Promise program that is now sort of a statewide pilot. Basically, a long-term goal is they want students to leave high school with 2 industry-recognized credentials. And as far as metric development goes, they're going to be tracking their progress on a public report card, which will actually show folks, both in the region and then statewide, how things are going. They say that they can point to ever-increasing numbers of students and families participating in the program as one of their early success points, and that they are hoping that this will serve as a model both for their region and really statewide on how rural communities might stem brain drain. We're going to move next to K64. K64 launched with a significant investment from the Catawba County Board of Commissioners, who committed $2.6 million over 2 years in seed funding. The initiative, which stands for pre-kindergarten through retirement, but as Garrett Henshaw has said numerous times, really stands for birth to retirement, is an effort focusing on making it to where Catawba County can compete in the global economy. And so they're looking at the pipeline. It's Catawba Valley Community College, the Chamber, Catawba County itself, all 3 of their K-12 systems, Lenore Ryan, and local companies are all working together. They have 6 focus areas: one-to-world technology, where they're trying to connect every student with technology devices. This began with a grant from a local industry partner who helped pay for Chromebooks to every 7th grader, which they now believe they're going to expand. It also means having tech-savvy educators. They created a training program for teachers because, as Garrett told me, what's the use of having all the technology in the classroom if the teachers don't even understand how to use it? They have a real emphasis around character and soft skill development. And this plays out both in the community college with their academy structure, where, for example, in the Furniture Academy, you have to complete 3 to 6 months of soft skill development before you can even hit the floor. Over to work-based learning, from where they have job shadowing, internships, cooperative opportunities. They also take folks, middle schoolers, into local employers and connect what they see there that might be really cool, whether it be car painting or advanced manufacturing or mechatronics, to the classroom, both what they might get in K-12 and in community colleges. And you're even seeing welding programs beginning to take hold with high schoolers. And so one of the things we heard over and over again from the commission was that we needed to connect employers to education and education to employers. And I think that K64 has done that really well. And so now I will hand it over to our esteemed colleague, Anita, for the takeaway.
Thanks, Nation. As you go through each of the profiles, you'll see that we've asked of them the following questions. We want to know, what is the program or initiative? Who are the partners? What are their roles? How does it actually work? That's important. And then we want to have some insight into what is the governance model, whether the effort is data-driven, what are the early indicators of success, and then, of course, given why we've done this work, we end with the question, what is the promise of this strategy for increasing educational attainment in North Carolina? You learn a lot from reading each of the profiles, and seeing the answers to those questions. Here I'd like to take a broader brush, however, and talk about some of the takeaways when you read all 10 of them collectively. So first of all, I was struck by how much marketing came up for every program. This sense that there is a real information challenge in communities, that students and parents and guidance counselors and other advisors are sometimes misinformed about the opportunities in the economy and what it takes to take advantage of those opportunities. So while some of the programs are more decidedly marketing, as Nation said with STEP in Edgecombe and Rocky Mount, every program in some way is responding to this misinformation challenge. The second thing that was clear for all of the programs is that they're all wrestling with the notion of coordination. How do you align priorities, curriculum, measurements of different arms of the educational pipeline, and how do you align that with the values and measures that are relevant for employers? Every community was clear that this is not easy work, and yet, as is clearly reflected in examples like Project Search, where there is strong employer engagement, it makes a difference. It is really difficult for educational institutions on their own to do this kind of work without employers who step up and say, we're going to be part of the glue that holds the coalition together. Then maybe this final takeaway from all is true of every single successful effort that has ever been done in the history of mankind. There is always that one person that everybody points to and says, if it wasn't for X, I'm not sure how we would be able to do it. And this is the person who sees opportunity where other people see challenges, who's willing to go sit in everybody's office and wear them down until they get on board, or inspire them, whichever it takes. But I was really taken aback by how in every one of these programs, there was a person who really served as the hub for the activity, even if the governance model wasn't a hub and spoke governance model. The next set of takeaways weren't evident in all of the profiles, but they were in enough of them that it's worth having some conversation. Nation made mention of the importance of more on and off ramps. And at the state level, we have this conversation often. It didn't really occur to me that I would hear it so much, in fact, so very much at the local level, where everybody seemed to understand that lifelong learning was a reality. And in order for their communities to flourish, they had to find ways for people to get the kind of education they needed just in time and come back into the system when they needed to reskill or upskill. That was pretty fascinating to me to hear. And it was particularly true because I didn't just hear it from the educators I interviewed. I heard it from county commissioners. I heard it from economic developers. I heard it from students. So I think that message, at least, is getting out there, and we should all be really proud of that. I've made reference to the importance of the business community. There are some of these programs where the business community's primary role is funding, but those are far and few between. Clearly, what communities are asking from their business leaders is to step up and lead in both the conversation and the implementation around some of these changes. And it is very exciting to see how many business leaders have picked up the charge, and quite frankly, how many of them, when interviewed, said, yeah, we're not doing this just because we want to be good community citizens. This is pure, unadulterated self-interest. This is about our business pipeline. Even going into middle schools is about beginning to recruit students for our pipeline. One other interesting point, and I saw this particularly in the CAP program in Alamance County, where one business leader said, I love it that we do these tours with students and their parents, because oftentimes the parents end up applying for jobs after they have a chance to come into our companies. So kudos to that business leader for seeing the win-win. And then I would end with the issue of data. We were pretty insistent that each one of these profiles be clear to us about how they were using data to inform the program. And I would say that every one of them articulated a real desire to be data-driven, but many of them also owned up to the challenges associated with that. Challenges range from Project Secure and Wig Tech saying, you know, we can train people and we probably can track them into their first job, but they have very little incentive to get back up with us to tell us when they take a job after that. Challenges are Made in Durham saying a lot of the information that we need needs to come from our public school system, and we're working on data sharing agreements, but it is taking time to make that happen for all sorts of good reasons. So one of the things that I would leave the commissioners on this webinar with is the thought that there may be opportunities for the My Future Commission to think about how it helps local communities who are moving the needle on post-secondary attainment to have models for tracking how they're moving that needle that then flow up on a state level. Because at the end of the day, whatever the state does is the sum total of what its communities do. With that, I think we'll pause and take some questions.
So if you'd like to pose a question, you can type your question in the chat box available through Zoom in the group chat, or you can unmute your sound and ask us a question over the audio.
I might say, this is Matthew, I might say there was a lot to process there, and I just want to thank Emily and Anita and Nation and everyone involved for just doing an incredible amount of work and research and just sort of boots on the ground in the field work. For me, one of the things that's nice to see is how many positive things are happening out there. The ability that we just had to sort of shine a light on some of these programs and some of these initiatives that are going on statewide. I think it's important. Sometimes we are wrapped up in what's not working, and so to show that there are plenty of things that are working, I think is important and valuable. It's great that this contact. Thanks for putting this up, Emily. I think there's a ton to process. As I mentioned at the outset, most of the briefs are already up on the myFutureNC website. The rest will be coming in a matter of days. So I think it might be wise for anyone, if anyone has questions or thoughts or comments, that once they've been able to process the information through the briefs, that they could certainly reach out. And here's all the contact information for Anita, Emily, and Nation. But this was a wonderful, rich presentation, and again, I just want to thank all the work that went into putting this together. I want to thank you so much for this.
Well, Matthew, I appreciate that, and let me just say kudos to you and Christy Teskey, who are staffing this myFutureNC Commission and who had the forethought to partner with EdNC and ncIMPACT on this work. We really appreciate it. And I couldn't get off this call without giving big shout outs to EdNC for their good work. Robert Kinlaw went around with me to 8 of the 10 profiles. I feel like we're kin now. He did all the videotaping, and I'm really excited for the programs and others to see the video shots. That really is the most effective way in many ways to capture these stories. So I'll fully own that while I do the boring writing, Robert does the exciting storytelling here. And as you all have seen, we've got a schedule for releasing those videos starting tomorrow. So pay attention on social media, and the My Future NC Commission website for those videos as they roll out. I just want to thank everybody for participating in this webinar today. It's been a lot of fun to share the stories of phenomenal leaders across our state who are doing such good things to improve the educational outcomes for the people in their communities. We are all indebted to you. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.